Hey guys, my name is Ricky. I'm a flight instructor, commercial pilot, entrepreneur, and your host of the Positive Rate Aviation podcast. Welcome to season 2. This season, we're going to continue our climb into the art of leadership, growth, and success through the lens of aviation. We're going beyond the basics. We're going to be exploring new horizons in personal development, mindset, and the strategies that help performers stay above the turbulence. From cockpit wisdom to real-world leadership lessons, each episode is designed to help you level up, lead with purpose, and keep your life and career in a positive rate of climb. So buckle up. It's time to set your heading, add some power, continue your ascent towards your full potential.
All right, aviators, welcome back for another episode of the Positive Rate Aviation podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Skinner, and today I'm joined by probably a face that many of you may or may not recognize, but Carly Chamberlain. Carly, thank you for coming on. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Ricky. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I when I first reached out to you and asked you to come on, I was really excited and really looking forward to making this happen. You got back to me pretty quickly. So I certainly appreciate you for that and agreeing to come on and give me some of your time and have a great conversation this evening.
Yeah, no, of course. I'm in my DMs more than I would like to admit. So yeah, I see the messages.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah. As I said before, for you guys watching when this comes out, many of you probably recognize Carly. I actually came across, and you know this from when we had our icebreaker the other day, but actually came across your YouTube channel. I guess maybe about a month ago now. It was right before Sun and Fun, but it spoke to me, given your background as an independent CFI and what you've been able to build for your brand and your business up until this point. It was nothing short of inspiring, to say the least. So I had to shoot my shot. She says she's in her DMs more than she cares to admit. So hey, I shot my shot in the DMs, and here we are. So now it's going to be a good one. But yeah, I know that you've got a pretty diverse background, and I purposely didn't ask too many questions when we had our icebreaker because I wanted to save a lot of it for here. But we know Carly, the instructor. We know about your journey in aviation. Some probably know a little bit about you as a former flight attendant. Some may know you as an artist. So I kind of want to get into a little bit of everything, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. But I'm going to start this kind of how I ask everyone that comes on here. But what is your why when it comes to aviation? Like what was it that drew you to aviation?
What is my why? I think it's evolved a lot over time. So what initially drew me to aviation was a love of travel. And I was kind of just like searching for what I wanted to do after college and couldn't figure out what that was. I got a bachelor's degree in art and then ended up traveling a little bit after college because I couldn't figure out what you do with a bachelor's degree in art. So, but what I did find was that I loved traveling. I loved seeing new places, and that led me down the line to become a flight attendant. So in 2018, I started there. I thought I would just do it for a year, and many flight attendants say the same, that I'll do it for a year and then figure out what the next thing is. But I did it for 3 years, and then that led to pilot training, and that led to being a flight instructor, and to all the things I do now. So my why has definitely evolved in each phase of that as I've kind of moved through my career. Right now, I'm in this interesting sweet spot of really just being in the center of the GA conversation. I'm currently working at Jeppesen 4Flight on the 4Flight brand. So I'm on the marketing team there. And coming from my work as an independent CFI, I've already been very heavily involved in GA, but now getting to see this other side of it through this different lens has just kind of brought me full circle. It's really become so much about the community and getting to go to like events with 4Flight and with Jeppesen has been awesome as well. But yeah, really just, I think right now where I've settled is really just GA, like the community behind it is really why I continue to love being a part of aviation.
Yeah, for sure. You actually made me think about something I didn't consider before. So, let's touch on the flight attendant thing for 1 second. How long is that training? Because that's pretty interesting that you said many flight attendants often say, "Hey, I'm here for a year and I'm out." So is that a long like pipeline? Like what does that training process look like?
Yeah, the training process. So I was at United, and the training process was 7 weeks at the time. I don't know if it's changed at all, but
Wow.
and the interview process was also a whole other thing. That was like months of just you put in your application, you wait, you get invited to a screening process, you wait, and then you'll eventually jump through all these hoops. They'll fly you out for an in-person interview, and then you'll wait another 3-4 weeks before you actually go to your 7 week training. So it's such a
Oh wow.
long process that I don't know, maybe it's just because a lot of flight attendants like me were drawn in for the travel, and they think I'm going to travel for a year and then I'll settle down. But you kind of get, once you put all that time behind actually becoming a flight attendant, and then you have this job that is pretty competitive when you look at the numbers of the amount of people who apply versus the people who actually get the spots. It's a huge volume of applications that they have to weed through to find these people. So once you're kind of there, you're like, wow, like I'm building seniority. I went through all this training. I made it through all the hoops. So now, like, why would I leave? And it's really easy to get comfortable and feel like, yeah, like this is it's pretty sweet gig once you're in it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's kind of why I wanted to ask you that question because it seems like a pretty large investment. It's in regards to time. Um, so uh is there something like with being a flight attendant that like that you learned about the industry that maybe, you wouldn't have learned had you just gone straight, through the pilot training?
Totally. I think when I first showed up to flight attendant training, I remember there were like a handful of airplane nerds in the class that would like, they knew everything about all the planes we're going to be flying on. And we get trained on the whole fleet. When you're a flight attendant, you just could be tossed onto anything.
Oh, wow.
So I think getting some, and we did not get near the systems knowledge that you get at even like the private pilot level, but just getting really, really basic systems and understanding like where equipment exists and like what different parts of the plane are called, how the doors operate, all these things, I think gave me a good foundation going into pilot training, just kind of starting to understand how the pieces fit together. But I also think it became a lot more applicable for me personally at the commercial pilot level, because there was talk about oxygen requirements and things like that, and that was a little bit more like I could understand that because we had been trained on how to use all the oxygen systems on the plane. So things like that definitely just helped me feel like I was a part of the conversation, even if I didn't have the depth of knowledge that I gained when I went through pilot training.
That's interesting. So, on the pilot, or excuse me, on the flight attendant side of the house, can you just go straight to the like one of the legacies? Is it kind of
Yeah,
like you?
that's what I did. So
Okay.
there you can really like you can apply to anybody. And a lot of flight attendants got their start by just putting in applications everywhere. Some have like, I want to go to this specific airline. But I was of the mindset I want to get hired at an airline. So I think I avoided the regionals because I looked at the pay discrepancy, and the pay
Mm,
at a regional is significantly lower. At least it was in 2018, and I knew that even the pay at a mainline is not great in your first couple years. So I knew like if I'm going to do this, it has to be sustainable. I'm not going to be able to live on
right.
the pay at a regional. That just doesn't
Yeah.
even make sense. So
Yeah. And this may be a silly question, but with that being said, you know, how do the regionals continue to like? What is it that's drawing flight attendants to them? Because
yeah, that's a good question. I think the higher turnover makes it maybe easier to get in the door at a regional. I do think regionals really have mainline beat on culture though. I think the crews always have fun. Like whenever you meet a regional crew, they're all like friends and they all love hanging out. And then you go to a mainline crew, half of them there's not a mandated retirement age for flight attendants the way there is for pilots. So you could have a crew of like 20-year-olds plus like 80-year-olds and everywhere in between. And some of them have been doing this for literally decades and just have no interest in like going out and hanging out. But
yeah,
at the regionals, you don't tend to see the age discrepancies in crews, which can maybe mean that people are like younger in their career and are more excited to go hang out. So I think that's part of the draw to regionals is definitely the culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what it is because I wish they would pay them better. They're doing the same job and they're
Right.
often doing 4 or 5 legs in a day, where at mainline you're doing like 1 to 3 depending on the day.
Right. Huh. Um, one more thing I wanted to ask you on the flight attendant thing. With you being now a CFI, would you say that was beneficial to your experience becoming an instructor regarding patients? Maybe like, dealing with unruly passengers and things like that?
You definitely learn how to work with any type of person as a flight attendant. Just if you're gonna be in that job for more than like a couple months, you have to learn to be good with all types of people. And those personal skills can really translate to any type of job. But I do think, especially as a CFI, as someone who has to have good leadership skills, really leaning into that portion of being a flight attendant can definitely contribute to a good, good experience as a CFI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. So let's transition a little bit more into your flight training experience specifically. So, I know you mentioned the other day when we spoke that you were out in Arizona at CAE, correct? Is that where
Mm-hmm.
would you care to kind of just speak on your experience there?
Sure. I did not have the best flight training experience, I will say. So there was just a lot of issues, especially looking back. I can 2020 you can see a little bit more clearly, but
Right.
it is a fast track school. That's kind of what they do. They're primarily 141, and they offer they offer the back end structure of a lot of pilot training program, airline pilot training programs, cadet programs. So they have a model that they do, but it's not always as advertised. But I would say that about CAE, I'd say that about ATP, I'd say that about like any fast track program that is kind of like selling you on some kind of big outcome. They can't always guarantee it, but they will act like they can. So in my case, for example, my contract was for 13 months. I was going to go from 0 to hero. I had 1 hour from a discovery flight, and that was it. So I was literally starting from nothing.
Right.
And so I didn't know any better. I didn't know that 13 months is kind of like an insane timeline. It can be done, but going from 0 hours, going through, I think it was 6 check rides total in that amount of time is like pretty fast.
Oh yeah.
And so I ended up not completing the program until a total of 21 months had passed, which was a big difference. It was really tough on me personally because I had made a lot of life plans around getting out of this program at a certain time, and I had left my job to do this full time. So just tacking on an extra like 8 months was not necessarily an easy thing to do, and it was very expensive in both time and money. So I will say, like, there are people that come out of CAE and similar programs with positive experiences, but I just like try to provide transparency for other people as much as possible. That's what I started doing a lot in my content when I was like fresh out of flight school, just trying to kind of bring people down to reality that, hey, it might not take you 21 months like it did for me, but you might not finish in the allotted time that they say that you will. So I always advise people. I was actually just talking to someone like 2 hours ago. Someone asked me about my experience at CAE, so this is all very fresh in my mind. But so so I tell them, plan a buffer of 10 to 20%, both time and money, on top of whatever the school tells you, because they're going to sell you the best possible outcome, not the most common or most realistic outcome. So my situation became a little bit extreme. There was just some stuff going on behind the scenes that was beyond my control, so it added on a lot of time. But even for people who didn't experience that much of a delay, still many people that I went through flight training with did not leave at the time that they expected to, or if they finished training in a reasonable amount of time, then there was a hiring crash and they couldn't get into their airline that they expected to go to as quickly as they thought. So any program that tells you you'll be an airline pilot in 2 years or whatever is just lying to you. Like, it can't be done. They can't
Yeah.
promise that. So yeah, just take everything with a grain of salt is my best advice.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your transparency there. And in the interest of transparency, um, did you ever experience a period in your time there where you were like, I don't know if I can do this. Like maybe this is not for me. Did you ever have those feelings of, maybe I can't make it, or were you just kind of
Yeah,
like, hey, I'm do
no, completely like throughout the program for sure there were definitely times, and I would say even times that were unrelated to the anything to do with how the program was run or how fast I was going and anything like that. Because in the very beginning, I actually did move very, very quickly, and it was everything I thought it would be. And so my private pilot took maybe 3-4 months. My instrument rating took 7 weeks, and it was very fast. But the going through my private pilot phase, I remember walking out with my certificate that I passed and thinking, I can't believe that I'm allowed to do this. Like I don't feel like I should be allowed to do this right now, but I am. They said I'm
yeah.
good. So but there were plenty of times that it's just you feel that self-doubt of, do I actually know what I'm supposed to know at this stage? Like they didn't ask me everything you could possibly ask somebody, so who
Right.
knows? But yeah, and then I think going through my commercial phase, I felt really, really confident. I was getting great at things that I used to be terrible at. Just like my landings were consistently good, things like that. I think going through CFI was another test of, can I actually do this? Can I actually teach people? I feel like I still don't know everything I need to know. And now I'm supposed to go out there and like make new pilots. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I told you the other day too that graduating from that program, I left with about 220 flight hours total. And that was after I had my CFI and my double I. So I definitely had some imposter syndrome then that cropped up then as well, because I was just thinking like, there's people who've been working on their PPL and have 100 hours, and how am I supposed to teach
Yeah.
people that I'm barely beyond them in hour requirements? But the experience is very different though too. So
Right.
yeah, it's just there's plenty of times that I thought, can I actually do this?
Yeah, you blew me away the other day when you told me that. That actually might be a record in my personal experience from anyone I've spoken with about how quickly they actually made it through. That's a testament to your ability to apply what you were learning clearly. So what would you say was your toughest? Which rating was it? Would you say you struggled with the most? CFI?
Uh Man, no, I think it's funny because like instrument was the one where I passed every lesson, every stage check, everything was fine. But it was the one where I felt the most behind. I think it was the
Mm,
biggest fire hose for me, where it was like speaking a new language. I felt like I could barely keep up. But on paper, I was keeping up. But I think mentally, I was just feeling like I don't know if I actually am fully absorbing all of this yet.
yeah, yeah, oh
I do
yeah.
think CFI was really tough, but that one I had the best ground prep for sure, because all the other ratings and certificates that I went through, we did just like online ground school in conjunction with our flying. And for CFI, they actually, I will hand it to CAE. This is one thing I think they do very well is their CFI program. You go through, I forget if it was like a month and a half of in-person. I think it's like 3 or 4 days a week for like the whole day. You're in ground school, and the first few weeks you are just learning. You're listening to the instructor. Instructor was awesome. They only put like the top instructors in the school on that class,
Hmm.
and then you spend the back half of the class rotating through. Everyone in the class teaches, and you teach like a few times. So some days you'll be sitting listening to other people teach lessons, but it was just such good real world practice of getting an assignment. A couple days later, you have to come back prepared to teach, and then we would all critique and give each other feedback. So I did feel that even though CFI was really challenging, I think that I was very well prepared for that one compared
Hmm.
to other check rides that I took.
Yeah. How with that being an accelerated program, like let's say you took a check ride on a Friday for, instrument. Was there like an expectation, like, okay, hey, you did this Friday, you're gonna start commercial on Monday? Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, it
Oh
was
wow,
pretty
okay.
much that. And actually, instrument I think was the fastest paced rating that I did, and I passed my check ride. And I think the next day they had me on a lesson with a new instructor for instrument. Or, like I passed my private, and then next day went straight into instrument. And some days for my instrument training, we were doing 2 sims a day or 2 flights a day, and we would
Wow.
just go back to back. So that's part of how you're able to get through it so quickly, but it kind of depends on your instructor too and what your instructor is willing to do. Because I had instructors who were willing to fly with me twice a day and had the availability. And I also had instructors who wouldn't contact me for 2 weeks, and I would have to chase them down and be like, please schedule me. Please, I'm begging you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it just depends.
Okay. Wow. So no, that's great. So let's talk about like now transition more to your journey. You've got your CFI. You're kind of dipping your toes into this content game. Talk to me about that. Like, when did you kind of start to, when did that imposter syndrome kind of start to subside and you kind of come into your own?
Yeah, as far as content, that was really just a happy accident. It was not something that I had planned to do. It was just, I'd always enjoyed sharing my photos and videos. I've been on Instagram as long as Instagram has existed, but I did not ever gain any significant following until after I had left flight school and I was at home in Tennessee, just renting a plane, just trying to like get connected in the community and just keep myself flying as much as I could. And I just started sharing like clips from my flights that I would take solo. And one of them just took off, went crazy viral. And it was just like, it just kept going from there. I think once I saw the success from the first one, instead of just letting that be like, oh, that was cool that one time I went viral, I just leaned into it and I kept going and kept posting more and just kind of
Mm,
acting like this is what I do now. And if you
yeah,
just tell people this is what I do, they're like, okay, like you're a content creator. So it just kind of happened that way because I leaned into it and kept the momentum going. So
yeah. What was that clip? Like, what were you doing? Like anything special? Were you in a cool
it's
location? Like, what was it?
no, it was just me flying solo. It's like this 10-second clip of me being like, I'm just in the sky right now by myself. There's nobody here. And
Yeah.
people were like, some people in the comments loved it, people in the comments hated it. The sound started trending for like um people who were like smoking weed or like doing mushrooms would be like, I'm just in the sky right now. And so then it kind of took on a life of its own. But yeah, once you become a trending sound, that's like gold. Like
Yeah,
it,
you made it. I feel like you should be getting paid for that.
I know. No, Instagram probably paid me like 17 cents. They're like
Yeah.
notoriously bad for monetization.
That's funny. Um, so with you as an independent CFI, entrepreneurial mindset, like, did you realize right away, like, okay, this is something that could potentially be, a little bit unconventional, if you will, from the standard track of become a CFI, get 1500 off to the airlines. Like, was there a moment where you're like, man, maybe this is more of a route that I'd like to take?
I still was kind of unsure what I wanted to do when I was in flight training still. I started to kind of think like I don't actually know if I can even picture myself being an airline pilot. That is what I started flight training with, the idea of becoming an airline pilot, but then I kind of started to see all the things that you can do, all the there's business aviation, there's general aviation, there's just a lot of routes that you can take as a pilot that don't all not all roads lead to the airlines, is what I learned. And
Hmm.
so once I left flight training, it was my priority to come back home to Tennessee. My partner and I had bought a house and we just wanted to, be back near family. So I kind of started over. I didn't have the advantage that a lot of my friends had of getting hired on at the school where you went through your training. So I had to build up my community from scratch as far as aviation community goes out here. So
Right.
when I first came back to Tennessee, I was just renting. I was trying to get plugged in at my local airport. I was interviewing with a couple local flight schools, but the thing is, we moved so we used to live in Nashville, but now we live so far out of the city, just so remote, that I would have to commute really, really far to go to any of these flight schools that I was interviewing with.
Gotcha.
So my closest airport where I was renting a plane, I just started talking to the rental company, and they were looking for a CFI to do checkout flights for the company. So I kind of started there. And then they had a handful of CFIs that they worked with already, but as those people's schedules were filling up, they started just sending students to me. So I kind of had this built-in machine of like, they had the brand and the marketing, and then I was just a person with an open schedule. So I was available.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like ready and willing to do whatever. Like, someone needs a checkout flight, someone needs a flight review, I'm happy to do it. So yeah, it kind of just grew organically from there. But it just kind of started with me knowing like what my priorities are, and then figuring it out from there,
Yeah.
and what I'm willing to be flexible on and not flexible on. Like, I don't really want to commute 2 hours. So I got to
Oh
figure out
yeah.
an alternative.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We talk a lot in aviation, more so with the airlines, but even where we are, quality of life, that's got to be something that's taken into consideration, a lot more often. Um, so what do you think is, and this may not be a proper term, but what do you think is broken in like modern flight instruction? Because let me say, like, when I ask that question, because we're on the topic of like content creation and things like that, do you think that is, helpful, or is that, maybe like hindering, modern flight instruction?
No, I totally think content creation is a great vehicle for independent CFIs specifically. When you're a CFI working for a school, you have the kind of model that I had with the rental company, where you have a business with a brand who is just assigning you clients essentially. But when you're independent, you are end to end, you're the whole operation. You have to find your clients, you have to maintain the client relationships, and then do everything. It's a huge responsibility. It really is.
Yeah.
And you
Oh
have to
yeah.
have so many skills to pull that off and be a good independent CFI. So it's not for everybody, but I think for the person who is willing to put themselves out there, you don't have to do social media, but it helps a lot, I think. Just it almost in this day and age, like, if you're a business that's not on social media, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot. You're kind of limiting your potential of who's going to find you and be able to connect with you. So I think even if you don't view yourself as a content creator, just being bold enough to let people know that that's what you're doing, that this is your job, this is your business. You don't have to make like silly, goofy videos to do that, but putting yourself out there is a huge way to just make your business known.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you and I, we talked about this the other day, but just to kind of bring it here, for the viewers, and I'll apply it to myself, right, as an independent instructor. Do you think that independent flight instructing is, I mean, it obviously has its challenges, right? Because like you said, you don't have the machine pushing you. Um, but general aviation, as we know, is very, cost prohibitive, right? It's very cost prohibitive. So do you think that, and with that being said, sorry, I'm like really long winded right now. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like, typically in general aviation, we see a lot of like older, typically a little bit older pilots, people who are maybe a little bit more established, a little bit more financially set. Um, so at least in my experience, like I found that finding those younger potential clients and pilots who may be on a little bit more active on social media, they might see me, they might see the content that I'm posting and everything's going great. They're interested, they're excited, they're ready to get going. But when it comes time to, discuss payment, then there seems to be, you know, uh, ghosting, right? For lack of a better word, that
Mm-hmm.
happens. Is that something that you saw in your experience?
Yeah, I think what you and I talked about, that some of my best clients were those who were very career oriented. So they could see that there's going to be a return on their investment, because it is cost prohibitive, and it's not something that just anybody can do as a hobby. It's extremely expensive if it's a hobby, but at least if you know you're heading towards a career as a commercial pilot in some capacity, you can see that this is like paying for a master's degree. Like, I'm going to get this money back throughout the lifetime of my career. But when you're trying to just speak to the person who just wants to solo, like maybe it's their bucket list to just solo, or because I had a handful of people that were like that, or people who really just wanted to do the discovery flight, and just, which it's a crazy fun experience. Like, I try to peddle discovery flights to like as many people as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think beyond, if you can find the people who are interested beyond just like checking a box or having that one time experience, then you're going to find the people who really value the long term experience of becoming a pilot and then being a pilot. But it can be hard to weed out those people in the beginning. And yeah, I have taken on a ton of one time clients that were just for a discovery flight or just for a flight review. But the flight reviews can actually be great, because you can get that repeat business. But that's kind of you're building this really long term pipeline. Then you're kind of, you're giving someone a flight review now, and then maybe they'll contact you in 2 years, and you hope they will. Or
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
encourage them to come back annually. But yeah, it's not like a guaranteed business model in the beginning. So I
Yeah.
think just being patient in the beginning, being willing to take on any type of client with any type of goal, but then being really intentional about continuing to fill your pipeline, so that if students drop off, or if they aren't in it for the long haul like you thought they were, you still have people kind of coming behind, and you could start to keep like a contact list, even if you don't have a stacked schedule and you really can't take on more. You can say that you're going to start collecting like a wait list, and maybe they have to wait like a couple weeks to get on the books, but at least you kind of are you're growing your pipeline, you're keeping people engaged, and then you can kind of build this network and this database of possibly interested people.
Hmm. No, sure. Um, so how do you balance like authenticity with like public persona, right? When you have this following and you got a lot of eyes on you, do you find that balance challenging?
I think the challenge for me is honestly like knowing what to pull back, because I don't want to like word vomit my whole life on people, and I want to be intentional about putting out content that is relevant to my audience, that they find interesting. But like I said, I also grew I was on Instagram for a decade before I became a content creator. So I was very used to just sharing my whole life. So I think the balance for me is not so much like authenticity as much as it is just like knowing what to share with the people that I have in front of me now. And I've kind of, danced that line where sometimes I post something and I'm like, I know this isn't going to perform well, but I want to post it. So
Yeah,
like, I know
yeah,
there's no airplane in this video, but I want to post it. And so I'll still kind of dance that line sometimes, of sometimes you see my personal life and sometimes you see flying tips, and it all fits together somehow.
yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I didn't even have anything about that written down, so I'm kind of glad you said that. So that's something that I'm finding myself kind of at a crossroads, if you will, from time to time. I'm like, okay, you know, obviously I love aviation. This is what I do, but I don't want this to ever come off as like this is just who I am. I'm just a pilot. I'm just a flight instructor. Like, do you think it's beneficial for people or the world to see, you in different areas, right? Just being a normal person. Maybe you're at a baseball game, or maybe you're in your garden, planting, vegetables. Like, do you think that is some value added?
Yeah, I really do. I think that, especially just the longer I'm in the aviation content space, the more, people start to blur together. If you don't differentiate yourself somehow, it all kind of can start to look and sound the same. So I think there's actually a lot of power in sharing the things about you that are important to you outside of flying, because it can give someone another thing to connect with you on. It can give somebody another way to remember you by, and then you're not just kind of lost in the crowd of like aviation tips, flight instructors, people flying. Like, it can, there are certain people that only post flying stuff, and their content because they have really honed in on their style or just the series that they do or whatever it is. But I still think that even those people will sometimes share moments of just like hanging out with their friends, or something that's not 100% aviation all the time. It just gives you more dynamic, or dimension is what I meant to say. It gives you more dimension. It makes people feel like they can connect to you as a real person in more ways than one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm certainly trying to challenge myself to do that a little bit more. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about ForeFlight. You mentioned it earlier, or excuse me, Jeppesen ForeFlight. Um, so is that a fairly newly like formed partnership there with Jeppesen and ForeFlight?
Yeah, so I've been full time with them coming up on a year, almost exactly a year now. Um, and the company formally merged in October, I think. But yeah, it's been a long time coming, a long time in the works.
Yeah. And that was and so they reached out to you. They saw your content that you were posting online, and they just kind of reached out to you like, "Hey, we want you to do X X Y Z
Yeah.
for us."
Yeah, well, it's so funny. Now, a good friend of mine, but at the time I didn't know him, but this guy Keith, who worked on the marketing team at ForeFlight before they had merged, DM'd me on Instagram. Like I said, I read my DMs. So he messaged me and said, "Hey, like, I don't know if this is a good fit for you or not," but he had seen that I'd been writing for Flying Magazine on the side, and I would share articles that I was writing sometimes. And he was like, "We have this writing position on the marketing team open. I think you would maybe be a great fit if you're interested." So I was like, you know what? That's something I never thought that I would want to do. I didn't think I would be interested in a corporate position, but I was really starting to lean more into the content side of my business, and just really enjoying like being able to have creative freedom and not be, I don't know, just when I would be instructing, sometimes I would be banking on making money, and then the weather's bad and you don't make money that day. And I felt like I just had more control over what I was doing and the money I was making by working a lot more at home, and just like flying for fun and doing a little bit less teaching. So I was already kind of scaling back on the teaching, and I have just slowly become more and more of a homebody. And I was like, you know what? It's full-time remote. The money is great. Dream company. I've been a huge fan of ForeFlight ever since I started flying. So I've always been a product user first. So I thought, you know what, why not? If I hate it, I can quit and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, but at least give it a shot. And it has really been like a dream job for me. I still think that ForeFlight is like the top of the game. Sometimes I'm looking around like, where do I go from here? I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is it for me. Like, this is like the top of GA for me. So
I would say you've reached the pinnacle for sure. So with that, I mean, that validation had to feel awesome, right? When you have this, this guy reach out to you like, "Hey, you have this opportunity presented to you."
Yeah, it really did. I think it was really cool to see like something tangible come out of all the work I'd been doing on my content. And, I'd been getting brand partnerships and doing things like that were really fun, but it was also just a one-off contract. So then getting this offer to go full time with a company that I admired so much, and I had talked about ForeFlight in several of my videos before too. So without being paid by them, I had no partnership with them. I would just talk about them because I was genuinely using them.
Yeah.
And so getting invited to even interview for a job with a company like that was just like mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, no, seriously. So and this may be a little like counterproductive to your employer. Not crazy, but do you think that like newer pilots, like student in particular, student pilots rely too heavily on this technology?
I think they can. I think a lot of that depends on the instructor, honestly, because I think I'm trying to remember now at my flight school where I did my training, we were given ForeFlight subscriptions as part of our like student package, but I
Wow.
think in the very beginning they weren't doing that yet, but all the instructors still were recommending it. So I know that I was using ForeFlight at a very basic level as a student pilot. But I also know that my instructor and my school required us to do a lot of things on paper still and a lot of things by hand. So we would have to handwrite nav logs in pencil like every time we go fly.
Yeah.
So we still, I think the way that they taught it, or at least the way my instructor taught how to use ForeFlight, was really productive because we were still learning the mechanics behind what we were doing, but then we were able to also like get really efficient weather briefings from ForeFlight and things like
Mm,
that, and like file our flight plans through ForeFlight. But we weren't like, she did not want us to. I had a female flight instructor, which was really cool for me for my first instructor, but she did not want us to be like glued to our iPads. So
yeah.
yeah, so I think she had a good way of balancing it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. My initial instructor for private, he actually would not let me use ForeFlight at all. Like I did not see ForeFlight until I started my instrument training. Which in the moment I was kind of like, I see these other, students using it. This looks awesome. But in hindsight, I'm like, I think I gained some really valuable skills from the primary way of doing those things. But um, so what do you think is an underrated like feature of ForeFlight that pilots should use more? Like what do you that could be, beneficial?
Ooh, I think for me personally, I think logbook was a huge underrated feature. And now
Really?
I use ForeFlight logbook, but I didn't really realize they had a logbook before because we had paper logbooks at our school
Okay.
and we would just fill those out. And I was actually using a separate like digital logbook that someone else had recommended to me. And then when I realized that ForeFlight had a logbook, I was like, why am I doing all this extra work? And like, I don't want to pay for two subscriptions. And the ForeFlight logbook is great. You can import your track logs right in there and the data's already there. So yeah, I think that there's just like two camps of ForeFlight users, like those who know about logbook and use it and those who like don't yet know about logbook. But I think more people should use
Yeah.
logbook for sure. It's just so convenient. And I know something else that people worry about. I've started to see this now being on the ForeFlight side, that I think people don't realize you can still access your logbook. If you were to ever like close your subscription for some reason, you can still download your logbook. So I think people
Mm,
worry about that. Like they don't want to lose all that data. But yeah,
yeah.
you can still access it.
That's actually surprising to say. I didn't realize that many pilots were unaware of the ForeFlight logbook.
Maybe it's just like I feel like no one at my school was using it, so I didn't know about it. None of us talked about it.
Mm,
But maybe it's more common. It was just not used at my school. But now
yeah.
I'm, yeah. But just now I'm wondering, why did we log everything in paper? Because you could like spill stuff on it, or
Right.
people get, if you get your flight bag stolen and your logbooks inside it, it's all gone. So
Yeah.
yeah, just having that digitized copy of it, I think, is really important.
Now, I will say, and I think about this quite often, one thing I wish I had known about with the ForeFlight logbook is when it comes to signatures. So so from the beginning of instrument, when I started using ForeFlight, I keep a paper logbook as well as my ForeFlight logbook. However, I was unaware of the instructor signature feature. So I have all of my logbook entries, from the very beginning, but I only actually have for all of the dual received, I only actually have the signature on the paper logbook. So heaven forbid if something ever happened to my paper logbook, I could show for flight, but are any of those entries valid, right? So now it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I have it and I can show it, but again, if there's no signature, then how do I prove that this is valid, training?
Yeah, right. That's a lot to go back through and like get all those signatures. I think at the very least it's a good digital backup. I converted at some point, converted all of my paper logs to digital, and even though they don't have the signatures on them, I just at least I know I have I have
Yeah,
like a record as a backup and everything's there. And then I've pretty much just been logging digital going
yeah,
forward.
yeah, same. Okay. Let's see here. So I want to talk a little bit about your background in art. So is that something that you'd been kind of passionate about since early childhood?
No, honestly, I was always very creative, but I did not actually take a formal art class until I was, I think, a junior or senior in high school. It was like the very end of high school and I needed an elective and then I took a drawing or painting class and the teacher was like, "Wow, wish you would have come in sooner because you could be in like AP art or whatever." But that's when I really fell in love with it though. And then it just was very fast moving from there. And, come to think of it, that's kind of how I came into flying too. I was just like, once I found it, I loved it and I went all in and I did it super fast. So maybe that's just how I move. But
Yeah.
because so then I when I went to university, I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. So I went in undeclared. Um, but I think I kind of knew I wanted to declare art, but like my parents did not want me to declare art. So my dad wanted me to like get an MBA and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
um yeah, so I ended up declaring it and it was the best thing ever because I got a degree in something I really enjoyed and nobody cares what my degree is in now. Like people care still if you have a bachelor's degree. I think that is starting to phase out more. But unless it's something hyper specialized like doctor, lawyer, accountant, like they don't really care what the degree is in, is what I've found. It's kind of just
Sure.
like check a box, you have a bachelor's degree. Um, but I'm really glad that I got it in something that I'm really passionate about. So,
Yeah. That's interesting that you didn't take an art class until your senior year and then you end up being an art major in college. So did you just
yeah.
like do a lot of were you just as a child, did you draw? Were you just kind of like, doodling and like freehanding like pictures or
Yeah, I would I did a lot of drawing. I was very like crafty. I would like make stuff.
okay.
Um I was like little entrepreneur, like making little like paper like animals and stuff and I'd like sell them to kids in my class like for like a
Yeah,
quarter.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, and actually, I think in my like freshman or sophomore year of high school, I like painted a mural on my bedroom wall. So I was like naturally just very creative, but I didn't actually lean into that as a, you know, anything for my future. I just kind of thought it was like fun to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, then once I was in college though, I did take a semester um, to go paint in France, which was like the best thing I ever
Hmm.
did. Uh it counted as like all my credits for the year and I just got to go like oil paint and that was it.
Wow.
It
Wow,
was
that's
great.
awesome. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, like, with you having that artistic background. I mean, I could definitely see how that translates in regards to the marketing and, like you said, that entrepreneurial mindset and even being creative to be able to, relay information to students, right? And finding different ways to be creative. And as you know, as instructors, more often than not, we find ourselves drawing runway layouts, taxiways, things of that nature. And I don't have an artistic bone in my body, so anytime I'm standing at the whiteboard having to draw something, it's a struggle. So I'm sure that was like second nature for you. But no, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it helps because I'm very like visually inclined and very I'm like I learn really well by like doing things with my hands. So like flying, I think the mechanics of flying came to me very well because I was able to like sit there and do it and like see all the things for myself. The book knowledge side was a little bit harder to like memorize and system stuff was always a drag for me. But yeah, I think the action of flying is so fun and um yeah, just like the muscle memory and mechanics behind it I think are really interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I know you mentioned you had a female instructor. Was that for your private? That was your so
Yeah,
you,
that was my
you're
very Sorry,
Wow.
my dogs are barking at someone pulling up. Yeah, so I did have a female instructor for my very first instructor in my private pilot phase.
Which is pretty cool because I don't think that happens a lot.
Yeah, it's so at my school, there was a pretty good percentage, I would say, of women to men, but it was still, there's maybe like 20% female cadets to
Mm,
male cadets. Maybe that's even generous. Maybe it was like 10%. It felt like there were a lot of women around, but uh, I would say more than what is like the stats for pilots globally.
mm.
It felt like a better concentration of women at my school.
Have you ever felt pressure to maybe prove yourself, a little more in the industry, being a woman in aviation?
I think yeah, at times. I don't know that it's ever been like a very significant struggle for me, but there's definitely been times where I felt like, oh, I need to keep up, or I need to be at least as good or better. But I could be very competitive, so maybe that's
Mm,
just like a competitive thing. And
yeah,
but I do also think that I was really fortunate to have a lot of classmates and friends around me who, like, male and female, who were just like very cool, very supportive people, and we would all we were all just supportive of each other throughout
yeah,
training. So I think that helped a lot too.
yeah. No, that's wonderful. Okay. So, what would you say that, there's a lesson that you've learned from aviation that applies directly to business and, being an entrepreneur?
Hmm. I think self-sufficiency is just a really key part of both being a
Mm,
pilot and being an entrepreneur. You have to be very self-motivated and disciplined. And you have to, yeah, you have to be willing to like get your hands dirty and do the work, and not just stick around for the shiny fun side, because becoming a pilot can be extremely grueling, like
yeah,
mentally, physically, emotionally. It's just a grind sometimes. And if you're someone who is just in it to like take airplane photos, I don't know, like post content about flying, like you're not going to make it long if you're not willing to be disciplined and put in the work to succeed and become a very proficient pilot.
yeah,
But same thing with entrepreneurship, running your own business, being an independent CFI. You have to be willing to be like boots on the ground, promoting yourself, making sure your business is, there's not like leaks or gaps in your systems. And it kind of, in being a pilot and in being a business owner, it all kind of comes back on you one way or another. So you have to be able to hold up that responsibility.
yeah. And I'm glad you said that, and you reminded me of something. And I want to shout out my old instructor Ricardo because he we were having a conversation once, and he told me that something that he does is he challenges himself every day to either learn something that he didn't previously know, or to reaffirm something that he previously learned, to basically, keep the tools sharp, so to speak. So every day it could be something simple or a little bit more complex, but just something to keep himself sharp and fresh and on point as a flight instructor. So I find myself doing that now, even if it's just a quick little Google, like, I don't know, something about runway lights, right? I just try to keep things fresh. So I'm glad you said that. Um, okay, no, this is great. So what's next for you professionally? You got any other like side, ventures, business ventures that you care to speak on?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of what we were talking about before, just finding the balance in your content and all of that. I'm not trying, I am starting a brand that will merge with my personal brand, but more focus on my art. So
Mm,
um, there's a couple things in the works. I've been working on starting my own podcast actually for quite a while. It just kind of stalled out this past year, but um working on that, and also just bringing back more art and creativity into my life. I've been kind of doing that on the side. I've been like waking up early and painting before work and just kind of fitting it in where I can. But
Nice.
it is something that's so important to me. And I think for a while I was very much in the mindset of like, I have to like grind and make money, and I don't have time for hobbies. And now I'm very much coming back to what's important to me and what makes me me. And it's all these things. It's these things that are seemingly unrelated, but they work together still because they're both very important to me. So I'm trying to now figure out this combination of keeping my aviation content and career going because I love it, but also kind of integrating more of that artistic creative side.
Yeah. Okay. So when can we kind of see maybe, the launch of this new merger?
I'm planning it for this summer. I know for sure before October because I have a deadline in October.
Yeah.
So like
Okay.
before October. But I'm like soft launching something right now that is going to start going out in July for the first time. So I have this subscription, this snail mail subscription I'm going to be sending out that's it's called Muse Mail. My podcast is going to be called Pay the Muse, so it's kind of a spin on that. But it's basically an art subscription, and so I'm going to be sending out like an art print every month, either something I've already completed or something that I'm working on now, and just include little like a note from me and other little like stickers and fun things. But just something tangible to kind of keep people connected, because we're in so much of this like AI forward world where I really want to create more real connection points and like tangible experiences for people.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, I'll certainly keep my eyes peeled for that. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, this is I pretty much hit on most of the questions that I had for you. Only thing that I've really got left, I kind of like to close it out with just something fun for the viewers that allows us to get to know you a little bit better. It's kind of like a rapid fire little segment that I like to call cleared for the option. So I'll just kind of pose a question to you. You just kind of tell me the first thing that comes to mind, and yeah, we'll get ready to get you up out of here. So with that being said, Carly, you're cleared for the option. What's your favorite airplane you've ever flown?
Cirrus SR-22 Turbo.
Nice. Okay.
That's what
Uh,
I did my high performance in.
nice. Dang, I want to fly Cirrus. Um, VFR or IFR?
VFR.
VFR. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite flight you've ever flown?
I think what immediately comes to mind is Sedona. Just flying into Sedona
Mm,
for lunch with my friends was one of the most fun flights I've had.
wow. Well, yeah, heck yeah. What's your least favorite flight you've ever flown?
Oh, least favorite. I don't know, probably any flight where I'm just the instructor critiquing landings, if we're just doing like a full like 2 hours of landings and I don't touch the controls.
Yeah, yeah. That's fair. I can definitely relate to that. So when you're traveling, window or aisle seat?
I'm a window girl if it's under 3 hours, but over 3 hours, I don't like to ask people to move if I have to pee. So I'm an
Yep.
aisle person for
Yes,
the long haul.
very much so. As I get older, I'm like, yeah, I got to make a few more trips to the bathroom. So definitely the aisle for me. Okay, and last one, last one I got for you. ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot? I'm just kidding. Don't answer that.
That is, yeah, that's obvious.
I had to throw that one in there for you. But no, this was great. And with that, you cleared the land. So no, this was great, Carly. Again, I definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing this experience with me. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this coming out. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So oh, before we go, would you care to plug your socials and just where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm at Carly Chamberlain on everything: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and my website is carlychamberlick.com, and that's where you can find pretty much anything. The newest things that I'm working on will always be there.
Sweet. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, Carly Chamberlick, and it's been a pleasure. Don't go anywhere. We'll just kind of do a little debrief once we go cold mic. But once again, thank you. I appreciate it, and yeah, we look forward to seeing this out soon. All right, thank you.